Hey guys, what's going on? So I've been meaning to do this video for almost 3 years now. I meant to do this back when the Magic Whip was first released, but I never made the video for some reason. It's taken me this long to actually get to this point. I wanted to make a video comparing the Magic Whip to the rest of Blur's albums. I just thought this would be fun to do because I feel like the Magic Whip is a much more mature album than most of Blur's other work, and I just think it would be kind of interesting to kind of see the growth of the band as we go through time here and comparing it to the newest album. So we can start with Leisure here. This is the Blur 21 box set. I have unboxed it on this channel many years ago, but it contains all their studio albums. It has a 45 included from when they were called Seymour, before they changed their name to Blur, back in the really late 80s. It has a cool little book in here. It's got 2 DVDs, well, 3 DVDs. 2 of them are a live concert, and the other one's like some extra rare video and stuff like that. Here's the Seymour 45. It's pretty cool. It's got it's only an A side. There's nothing on the B side. But it's the track Superman from when they were called Seymour. Really low quality. It sounds like it was recorded live many years ago. But it's kind of cool to have something like this included in the set. Something that kind of shows off the older days of Blur. Cool little poster there. This download code doesn't work anymore, but I'll cover it anyway. But anyway, that's just a really cool set. So anyway, we can start off by talking about Leisure. I feel like Leisure kind of was the stepping stone that many bands kind of go into with their first album. It's kind of just them, you know, trying to make it out there in the world. I do think this is one of Blur's more weaker albums. You know, some bands come out where their first album is their best one. I don't feel like that's the case with Blur. Damon's writing is very simple on this album. A lot of repeated phrases. It's like some songs on this album don't contain more than like 12 words. It's just like repeated over and over again. There are some huge highlights on this thing for me though. She's So High, that starts off this album, really great single. The song Bang is awesome, really great single. There's No Other Way, obviously. High Cool, Wear Me Down is the ending song. I don't know, it's not one of my favorite Blur albums for sure, and it's definitely the one I listen to probably the least. But, you know, it's just the standard debut album syndrome that some bands go through, where it's just, you know, not as good as the rest of their content. But I still really enjoy it from time to time. This is one of my favorite albums by them, though their second album, Modern Life, is rubbish. Way more guitar, just straight up kind of rocking, alternative kind of album. Pretty long, lengthy record, if I remember correctly, but this entire album is a highlight for me, honestly. I love every single song on here. It's just rocking. Damon is sounding more British than ever, especially on these early Blur releases. Colin Zill, Star Shaped is one of my favorite songs by this band. Chemical World, obviously, Sunday. Villa Rose and Coping and Turned It Up and Resigned. It's just a really strong finish to this album too, and the instrumental cut's really great. They actually use the song Intermission in Baby Driver, that movie that came out from Edgar Wright. I'm a huge Edgar Wright fan as well. I really like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and At World's End. Baby Driver is just another amazing movie, and they used a Blur song in the movie, so check it out if you haven't seen it. And this is a huge album for the band, Park Life, their third album. A lot of people didn't even know Blur had 2 studio albums before this came out, that this album gave them so much attention, won many awards, kind of capped them as king of the Britpop era with Park Life here. It's definitely one of my favorites as well. I mean, I can't deny some of the great tracks on this thing. I really like the instrumentation on Clover Over Dover, the harpsichord, and, you know, it's a very pop album. Very big time pop album, but it's still really, really good. London Loves, To the End. To the End's a beautiful song. Let's see here. Yeah, The Debt Collector. That's a really good cut. Bang Holiday, fast moving song. The song Park Life, obviously. And Girls and Boys. Very, very minor hit here in the States, but still, the only song we know over here by these guys is Woohoo! And their next album, Great Escape. This is when Blur kind of delve into making a concept album where it kind of deals with, you know, businessmen. All they care about is their money, and nobody really cares about, you know, living life. That's kind of the topics that they tackle on The Great Escape. The whole album kind of tells a story that delves into that. That's a great picture of the band on the cover, back cover. Them looking like they're working in an office in the 90s. But yeah, still, really, really great concept. Some great songs on this thing. A little bit more upbeat and lively. Dan Abnormal, I think, is a really clever song because it's just Damon Albarn with the letters scrambled to make a new name. Arnold Same's a really interesting track. Entertain Me, that ends out this album. Really, really good. Just a really, really cool album. It Could Be You is one of my favorite deep cuts off this thing. Charmless Man, Best Days, Country House, Stereotypes that starts this album. Just really, really strong entry in Blur's catalog here. And this is where we start to get a little freaky with Blur, the self-titled album. At this point of their career, Graham Coxon was getting kind of like, man, I really want to make something different. I really want to make some music that actually scares people again. And so Damon was like, okay, fine, we'll freaking do it your way this time. And Graham got to create his weird album that he wanted in this one. It also kind of tries to hop on America's train. It tries to get America to pay more attention to them. It didn't really succeed at that, but that's another thing they were trying to capture with this album, is kind of get America to be interested in them. It didn't really work, but this is definitely one of my least favorite Blur albums, honestly. I think the song Theme from Retro should have definitely been left as like a B-side. I don't understand why that's an A-side cut on this thing. Just a really repeaty, synthy, freaky track that really goes nowhere, in my opinion. But there are some huge highlights on this thing. This is the song that gave America woohoo! Song 2, track 2 on this thing. I mean, it's a huge hit over here in the States. The only song anyone knows by this band over here. Beetle Bum, Song 2, Country Sad Ballad Man. That's a really different track. I really like the different instrumentation that's happening on this track. It kind of reminds me of something that Gorillaz might do when just like completely changing a style around to play with some new instruments and stuff like that. Country Sad Ballad Man's a huge highlight for me on this thing. You're So Great, too. That Graham Coxon, really fuzzy guitar, acoustic guitar, electric guitar. You're So Great. Huge highlight for me on this album. And Strange News from Another Star is really awesome. And then we got the crazy, weird, overly long Essex Dogs that ends out this album. Just a collage of noise and just really strange instrumentation going on in that thing. A really, really strange track, Essex Dogs, that ends out this album. Really, really interesting. I mean, they're changing up their sound. They're trying some new things on the self-titled Blur album. Very different. And now we get into the fucking crazy different on 13. One of my personal favorite Blur albums. I think this thing is perfect to a T. Really opens up your mind, though. This is definitely not the same band that was freaking girls who like boys, who do girls. When you got songs like freaking Bugman on here with the crazy distorted guitar right there in the center of the track where it's just nothing but like reverb and crazy fuzz from an amplifier that's been turned up way too loud and is too close to another speaker. It's just insane, this album. Really, really strange. I really like the song Trailer Park as well. Just that really kind of creepy beat. Same thing with Trim Trab on this thing. And the song Caramel. Holy crap, Caramel blew my mind as a kid in high school. Caramel is a beautiful song. So freaking epic. Reminds me of something like Radiohead might do almost. And No Distance Left to Run's a beautiful song. The song Tender that starts off this album is just freaking epic. Coffee and TV is one of the best singles this band has ever had. 13 is an amazing, amazing album. One of my personal favorites. I rank it very highly. I need to listen to that again. It's been a long time. And then after 13, we went on a long hiatus. Damon went off to do the first Gorillaz album in 2001. After 13 came out in 99. And then in 2003, they came back to put out Think Tank. Another really different kind of Blur album, but in a totally different way than 13 was. This is a little bit more mellow. It's a little bit more atmospheric, kinda. They had lost Graham Coxon by this point, with Damon doing all the guitar work, and it definitely shows on this thing. The song Crazy Beat, which is the huge, like, electric thumper on this album, it's definitely oversimplified, and I think it's just because, Damon's doing all the guitar work on this thing, and the really long, almost completely instrumental song Jets on this thing, just kind of a repeaty guitar line or whatever, but still a really epic sax solo near the end of that thing, where it just sounds really buzzy and all over the place. But Think Tank is a really kind of different kind of sounding Blur album, much like the newest one that we're about to talk about here. Think Tank just shows the band, definitely when they recorded this in Morocco, some of that influence kind of made its way into this album as well. But it's really good atmospheric album, really gives you a different kind of feel than most other Blur records, and I think that's the great thing about this thing. It's just, it sets itself apart, and just the band playing with some other new kind of sound again on this thing. So I really like Think Tank as well. And then after that, there was just complete radio silence ever since 2003, because Damon came back to do Demon Days with Gorillaz. He did Monkey Journey to the West in 2007. Did other opera things with Dr. D after he did Plastic Beach in 2010. Put out Everyday Robots in 2014. We finally got Humans in 2017. But before Humans, and I think it was 2015, we got the Magic Whip. This album came as a complete surprise. Nobody was expecting it at all. The only thing that we had heard about was that Damon was going to be, putting out something with Gorillaz here in a few years. But lo and behold, we got the Magic Whip. And, the song Go Out just appeared on the internet one day. And that's when everybody was like, so I remember the day that I posted my video when I first heard the song. I had just started a new job that day, and I was so annoyed because I just wanted to stay home and talk about Go Out. But the Magic Whip, definitely kind of like the same feelings that I have on Think Tank. I feel like this album just kind of goes in a way newer direction. It feels great to have Graham Coxon back in the fold, to hear those guitars again, especially after the absence on Think Tank. It's really been a long time, really, since 99 that we've really heard Graham Coxon on a Blur album again. So it's a great thing about this thing. We actually owe Graham Coxon a lot of thanks for this album, just because, they recorded this over there in Hong Kong, and, it wasn't going to be used for anything until Graham was like, hey, let's finish those songs we worked on. And here it is. In comparison to the other Blur albums, I feel like this one is way more mature. And I feel like some influences from Everyday Robots kind of floated in on this thing too a little bit. Damon was definitely playing with some more, I don't know, there's just a lot more prettier melodies on this thing. There's not so many like ludicrous kind of crazy tracks going on in this thing. You have like the song I Broadcast, which is like the huge dirty track on this album. But other than that, you don't really get a ton of, you know, like really over the top things going on. I mean, this album is really melancholy, kind of, you know, pretty, kind of gorgeous album in a way. I mean, like, the song Lonesome Street starts off this thing, really jangly guitars, kind of. And then the song New World Tower is just a beautiful, beautiful song. And the song I Thought It Was a Spaceman is definitely one of my favorite Blur songs of all time now. So yeah, like, you hold this album up comparing it to, like, a Think Tank, for example. It's cool. It's kind of like you're listening to the same band, but they're taking on totally different styles on both of these records. And hell, you could even throw in 13 with that, because all three of these albums from Blur are like freaking polar opposites from each other. Like, this one kind of has like more of a darker kind of feel to it, where I think this one kind of has like a neon light kind of darkness to it. It's a different kind of darkness, and it's hard for me to put into words. This one here is just disturbingly dark. This one is like in a dim lit basement. But still, I mean, like, they're all dark, but they have a different way of going about their sounds on these three albums, especially, I think. They tried to pull that off with this, but I don't think they succeeded as well until 13 came out. This one right here kind of got stuck in that in-between phase. You can definitely tell that they were trying to jump from the Brit poppiness of any album that came before this one into something different. But 13 is where they really shined in doing that. So all I gotta say is that there's definitely different phases to Blur, I feel like. These albums to me are... These four are the staple of their Britpop era, especially Park Life. They kind of went away with it a little bit on The Great Escape, but it's definitely kind of, you know, like songs like Mr. Robinson and his Quango definitely still stay on that kind of crazy, look how kooky and cool we are, Blur. And then you had songs off of, you know, the self-titled album, which kind of went a little bit more, whoa, what the hell's happening? Into freaking, is this even the same band anymore? And then after a long hiatus, Damon was like, I'm gonna get a little bit more mellow. Then I'm gonna put out Everyday Robots in a few years and put out something else a little bit more mellow. And, I don't know, you can definitely just see how the band kind of grew up, especially in the last two albums, in my opinion. And, it's just really interesting. So, anyway, those are the kind of the stages that I see Blur. The Britpop, the strange experimental, and then the melancholy, we're older now. Check out the two really kind of laid back albums that we did. So anyway, that's just my opinion. I love Blur. I love this band. I might talk about some of the B-sides at some point, because I do have a list of B-sides that I keep from Blur that I like to listen to from time to time, but this video has gone on way too long. So anyway, I will talk to you guys again soon. Thank you. I've been meaning to do this video for a while, so I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.